Welcome back. Well, I guess I should be saying that to myself. Welcome back to Cole Aspen Knight. That's me, and that's this channel. And it's been a minute since I made a video on this channel, in all honesty. Quite a while. Specifically, as it pertains to this video, which is the sequel to a video I made 10 months ago. 10 months ago, I reviewed Kagurabachi Volume 1, which is somewhere back there on a shelf, because I was too stupid to get that out. And I always intended to continue reviewing the series, but life gets in the way. But I did really enjoy Volume 1. I hate the video that I made on it, but most of my thoughts, I think, I still agree with if you go back and watch that video. It's just a little airheady. I don't get to the point. That's kind of a thing with me. I love to ramble, but I'm going to try and be a little bit more concise going forward. I'm actually reviewing Volume 2 and 3 back to back, so watch out for the next episode, which will hopefully not take 10 months to come out. Maybe 7. We'll see. But this, well, if the camera will let me show it, this is Kagurabachi Volume 2. I'll just put it on the screen like I did before. And yeah, I actually finally got to read this too. It was less of a gap between me reading it and reading Volume 1. I just didn't have the energy or feel like making the video, and it never happened. But I recently reread this and then continued the series from there after my hiatus with making reviews and also reading this book because I was excited to do it. What can I say about Kagurabachi Volume 2? Before I do, let's just do a little refresher since it's been so long on Volume 1. Volume 1 follows Chihiro Rokuhira, and he's our main character. His father is kind of the master swordsmith of the world. This is a world inhabited by sorcerers and people who use powers similar to a lot of other shonen, manga, and anime type deals. It definitely reminds me a lot of JJK as far as like the way society is structured around sorcery and powers, and how like the criminal organizations and like the government all are kind of involved. I guess with JJK it's more of like a secret government because they kind of have their own government, but I digress. And Chichiro's father was the guy who made these enchanted blades. 6 of them officially, and 7 if you count Chihiro's. His father was killed by devious forces because he was like trying to keep the blades to himself so they wouldn't kill people anymore, and Chichiro is on this path of revenge. It's a pretty good setup for a story, and I like a revenge story, and it works. And then of course throughout the process in Volume 1, Chichiro meets this girl Char. She can heal herself like from like any injury seemingly, and that's very valuable to criminal elements and people kind of from all parts of society, or like organizations in society. And so Chichiro saves her. We kind of meet the rest of the cast, and so on and so forth. And Volume 1 ends on the cliffhanger of the first other wielder of an enchanted blade, because Chichiro is trying to track them down, repossess them, so that people stop using them to kill and hurt people. And that would be Genichi. I think it's Genichi Sojo. I'm not sure exactly how they pronounce it, but he's kind of this very sadistic villain that we see, and he's kind of running this criminal element who's looking for Char. So he's going to cross paths with Chihiro regardless. This volume, Volume 2, opens up with that fight. Basically, at the end of Volume 1, Sojo walks through the door of the kind of headquarters that Chihiro is at with Char, and yeah, they get right into it. I mean, it's the opening of this volume is just a really epic fight between him and Sojo. And obviously, Char and Hinao, who's another kind of main cast supporting character, try to escape while that fight is going on. The fight is awesome. I mean, I don't know if I talked enough about the art in the first one, but now having read the next 2 volumes, Takeru Hokazono, I think is how you pronounce his name. That's how I've been pronouncing it. His art is fantastic. The way he depicts kind of speed and movement definitely, I think, gets it across. It hits the mark for me. And also his use of contrast and like the deep blacks in this series, and not a lot of like gray tone. I mean, obviously for like certain shading there is, but it's a lot of just straight up black and white. I think is really, really appealing as well as far as like visuals. But that fight with Sojo is crazy. It's really cool. And at the end of it, Chihiro tanks an attack, and it kind of implies that Chihiro is like a lot stronger than maybe we have seen. So our MC is starting to develop a little bit. Mr. Shiba, who is kind of his mentor slash like father figure, caretaker, friend, actually calls him a prodigy, and Chihiro kind of just like plays it off, but it's obviously setting up the fact that Chihiro is like, you know, he's that guy for real. And this volume also gets into a lot more of the lore about the enchanted blades themselves. Not so much Chihiro's backstory, but the blades themselves, which I really appreciated. And it gets a little bit more into the powers, at least of Cloud Gouger, which is the second blade that Sojo has, and N10, I believe, which is Chihiro's sword. It gets more into their powers and explains them, which is really nice because I do believe it that N10 might be explained a little bit in Volume 1, but this really starts to give you more of an explainer. But anyway, Char gets recaptured during Chihiro's fight with Sojo, and Sojo does walk away from that fight, as does Chihiro. And then we also get to see, while Chihiro's in the hospital, some members of the Kamunabi, which is like the government sorcerers. They're like the government like sorcerer police enforcers, and we get to see some like higher ranking members of the Kamunabi. The one and they have a really cool fight with Sojo later in the volume. That kind of gets set up because they want to mount this operation. Obviously, the Kaminabi wants to go after Sojo because he's a criminal and he has an enchanted blade, which they want. And Chihiro wants to save Char, so they decide to kind of work together through some minutia and all that. And the Kaminabi get to fight Sojo during that whole event. They go and confront him while Chihiro is kind of sneaking into the location and trying to break Char out. The fight with the Kaminabi is really cool, and it's interspliced with Chihiro explaining Cloud Gouger, which I think is a great narrative device to explain that and give that exposition in a way that works. We're like literally seeing it happen as Chihiro's kind of explaining how it works and like its common strategies. But my one gripe I do have about Volume 1 and Volume 2 is the pacing is way too quick. This whole first little arc, which I kind of like grouped together, the Sojo arc, I was just going to grab Volume 3, but that's Volume 3. Volume 1 is back there, like I said. But the first two volumes, which kind of encompass this Sojo arc, are paced really quickly. And I've been told by people who are a little bit further along in the series that gets better. So I'm not like knocking it too much, but I think there's just a lot left up in the air, which is okay. I kind of like that we don't get into the minutia so much with like every character, but I would have liked a little bit more of an explanation about like what the powers of these Kamunabi members were. I think that is kind of a hit to this volume, but the story itself flows very well, and Chihiro's story is I think the best part of Volume 2 and kind of the closing of this arc, because it's basically his ideology versus Sojo's. Sojo also reveres Chihiro's father, for making the blades, but he believes that Chihiro's father made them as weapons and to kill people. And Chihiro, knowing his father, knows that that's not necessarily his intention, or Chihiro doesn't think so. And I think it kind of calls into question Chihiro's like motives and his philosophy too, because maybe he didn't understand his dad as well as he thought, but he chooses to kind of prove that his philosophy is the correct one, and that kind of culminates in their battle during this volume. At the end, they have kind of a final confrontation, and it's epic. It's awesome. Chihiro kind of starts to show off like how talented he really is by like using his weapon in ways that like nobody thought they could do that, or at least he didn't think that the powers could do that. And Sojo kind of does the same thing, because they kind of explain that as you use an enchanted blade and you become a more talented user, you start to express the abilities of the weapon in different ways, which I like. That opens obviously the possibility for numerous different like evolutions of characters' power. I believe they also reveal in this volume that the enchanted blades have lifelong contracts, so whoever the current wielder of the blade is has to die for someone else to use them, which I think is very, very interesting. And I don't think that was explained in Volume 1. And so it sets up a lot for the world going on to the future. I do think Sojo as a villain is a little bit wasted, because he's set up to be this big bad of this first arc, and he dies at the end of Volume 2. Spoilers. Sorry, we're in spoilers. I should have put a warning. But he does pass away at the end of this volume, supposedly. Now, I will say, there is some ambiguity to it. I have a feeling he might return, because he's a character that not a lot of work, but a decent amount of work in these first two volumes was put into kind of setting him up and his kind of opposition to Chihiro. But yeah, Chihiro also breaks Cloud Gouger in their final confrontation, which is like this big moment, and it is cool because it's like, well, they're kind of playing up these enchanted blades like they're invincible weapons, like, and Chihiro breaks one during their fight. I also really like their fight is like timed. They say this fight's only going to last for 12 seconds, and there's like a timer in the panels. I really like how the author uses like sometimes to like really denote the like importance of a statement or like a narrator statement. It'll just be a black box with like white text for the narration statements, or the way he puts the clock, like the way he puts the clock into some of these panels and stuff and plays it in. There's just a lot of really well done graphic design stuff in this volume and the next volume that I think really elevate things. And I was really like enjoying the flow of panels and flow of pages in this volume much more than the first volume. Not to say that the first volume is bad, but I guess I've rambled all this time, haven't even given a ranking, and I gave a ranking in the last video, so I guess I'll keep that going. I would say Volume 2, so I gave Volume 1 like a 7.5. I would probably give Volume 2, I would either give it the same, or I would lower my ranking for Volume 1. Because I would probably lower my ranking for Volume 1 to more of like a 6.5 or a 7, which I don't think is bad. I'm not the type of person that like something's bad if it's less than like a 7. But I would probably put this at like a 7.5, around there. I think consistent 7.5 so far in this series, at like the high end. I didn't reread Volume 1 for this specific reading that I'm going through because I read it recent enough that it was in my head. But yeah, I would say consistent 7.5 so far. And I will say the series has continued to hype me up as it has gone on, because the end of Volume 2 also sets up kind of some more stuff going into the next volume, which is like there's an auction for the most powerful enchanted blade, and they're also sending an assassin of the Kamunabi after Chihiro, who is played up to be very, very powerful, and all that stuff. So obviously, like, every volume has gotten me excited for the next one so far, and I think that's a great mark of a series. So if you're following along with me or you're just interested, I still definitely recommend Kagurabachi. I'm sticking with it. I know 10 months is a long time to say that I stuck with it, but I did, and I'm going to. And my review for Volume 3 should be out sometime shortly after this one. And anybody who's watching this, probably it's already out. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'm glad to be back. I want to do more reviews. I'm trying to do more stuff on the channel. As you can see, I put a lot more comics behind me, because I basically stopped buying individual issue comics altogether, and I just do like collections and trade paperbacks now. And I got a lot more manga than I had the last time too, because I've been building up my physical manga collection. So I have a lot of stuff I want to review as far as books and comics, and I want to bring back the comic pod. There's a lot of that channel stuff. It'll happen, or it might not. I don't know. Will this video have a sequel within 10 months? Maybe. Maybe it'll be 12 months. Maybe it'll be 12 days. I don't know. I guess we're going to cross that bridge when we get to it. But if anybody did watch this, thank you for watching. If you're interested in Kagurabachi, go out, buy it, support this author. I think this is the best new shonen that I know of. And when this starts to get an anime, I'm going to be hype. I'm going to be super hype. So, yeah. Thank you guys. Peace.